Welcome to Squatch-D TV, where the truth is first before all else. Join your hosts, veteran investigator, TV personality, and author Steve Kulls, and from the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Project and the Kentucky Fried Fixes channel, Chris Bennett. Sit back and prepare to take yourself on a journey with the longest-running Bigfoot podcast, Squatch-D TV. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to another edition of Squatch-D TV for September 21st, 2025. I'm your host, your guy, the Squatch Detective Steve Kulls, along with my co-host with the most, Mr. Chris Bennett. What's going on, brother?
Steve, man, it has been a busy week. We have been trying to get a lawnmower fixed all week, and it's been a constant battle. I think Andy finally got the yard mowed yesterday, though. A constant battle.
Well, I got to tell you, let's give a quick shout out to our guest for tonight. Hello, David.
Hey, David. Hey, how y'all doing?
So, beautiful weather's been coming. Fall is happening.
Oh,
I noticed leaves are starting to fall upon the lawn.
Yep.
And got the big event coming up this week. For those going, there'll be an email going out tomorrow evening as to the locations of where we're going to set up for our mini expedition Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday morning around the Whitehall Sasquatch Calling Festival. And I got to say, it's going to be a great event, and hopefully the weather will hold out. Right now, they're saying it's a 50-50 chance of rain. That hasn't happened yet. Let's keep our fingers crossed it still doesn't. But anyway, first in chat tonight is Walter Kroll. Of course, Danny Weeks is here. Pat Collins, what's up, my brother from Washington County? Grant Rasha, what's going on? Henry May, what's going on from HBM's Cryptid Corner?
Yeah.
Who else we got? Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations. Hello to you, sir. Who else we got rolling in
Took me
here?
a while to scroll up the chat. It's hopping.
Yeah, we got Sally in. Grant, we already said Grant. They're yapping away here. Pat Barron, what's going on, Patrick? Good to see you. The Beatron in the house. Chris Blaylock, hello, sir. Bristol, what's going on?
Bristol.
Sandra Piper, good to see you here. Bigfoot, well, that's Bigfoot Forensics. That's our guest down there.
Hey, David.
And
how you doing, man?
who else we got going on? Boris Kahn.
I'm lost.
Boris Kahn is in the house.
Hey, Boris. I see Roy Longley in there. Hey, Roy.
Looks like he changed his name to Goonie Goo Goo.
Roy Longley, he represents the lurkers. Hello, all the lurkers out there. We appreciate you guys.
Stormy Bigham. Good to see you, Stormy. Welcome. Ron Meldrum in the house as well. Who else we got rolling here?
I'm lost. I don't know.
Pete H. What's going on, Pete?
Hey, Pete.
The Susie Monster is here.
Susie?
Jen, what's happening? Our bouncer, Jen. Good to
Jen.
see you.
I see Chris Blaylock. Hey, Chris.
Bigfoot Dwarf. What's happening? Eyes in the Woods. Hello.
Hey, Eyes.
I'm scrolling fast here.
Yeah, I'm there's a lot of people in tonight. Thanks, guys.
We don't have MK
hanging out with
Davis
us.
in the chat, but we have MK Ultra in the chat.
All right. MK Ultra.
Virax is in the house. Hello, Virax. Good afternoon to you. Or good evening to you, wherever you're from. Poncho Zorch. What's up, Poncho? Arthur Watt in the house. So we have our complete rundown of our folks right in time with the music. Isn't that great?
That is wonderful. And, I'll just tell you, I'm still scrolling down because I got lost a while ago.
I get it.
There's a lot of people, and thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. We appreciate you.
So tonight we have a great guest on for tonight. And instead of me, messing up with what our guest actually does, why don't we just let him... David, what is going out? give us your full name so we pronounce it right.
All right. My last name, I go by David. My last name is Zagan.
Zagan. Okay.
Zagan. Yeah.
BigfootForensics.com. You guys got to check that site out. Okay, David, what do you do?
Well, I am currently assigned to a crime scene unit at a local law enforcement agency in the North Metro Atlanta area. I am a certified crime scene investigator, certified latent fingerprint examiner. I've been to the Body Farm, the National Forensic Academy. I helped teach there occasionally. COVID kind of messed that one up because now the person that taught me now has a full-time job there. So they kind of nailed that one from me.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I still learned a lot going there, and I got to learn a lot by going back. I act as a latent fingerprint verifier and for about 7 or 8 other agencies. I help instruct on fingerprints, and within the past couple of years, I started really focusing not just on the identification of, but understanding the distortion that happens during the deposition of these fingerprints. Understanding what's moving, how to interpret it, really taking the context for what's happening. And that's kind of how I got into this is, hey, I could take that kind of knowledge and apply it to these casts and these impressions that I'm looking at.
Now, David, that Body Farm thing is, correct me if I'm wrong now, but is that where they study the decomposition of
Yes, that's one of the aspects. They have several acres there where they leave bodies on the surface, buried at different depths, and we get to go out there and study those decomposition rates. Yeah.
Well, I guess in your position, you need to know that stuff, but
it's helpful.
Yeah.
So I got a real, and thank you, Jen, for putting David's YouTube channel in the chat as well, so people can visit you over on YouTube as well, David. So my guess would be, what would you think, or what did you think? Have you ever looked at Jimmy Chilcott's work?
All right, you're going to start off really hard. Okay.
Absolutely.
I went straight to him, of course. I went straight to it. That's where, when I first started, I reached out to the Olympic project, and they actually, it was a one-liner instead of really addressing what I was asking for. They just wrote, "You should check with Jimmy Chilcott." Right. Unfortunately, if you really look at anything mentioning Jimmy Chilcott, he really doesn't actually write anything.
Right.
He just basically gives interviews and makes statements.
Yeah.
Nothing really to back up the work. Now, I don't want to.
Sure.
I'm going to preface this with, it was a different time then. Just like when you're working on a cold case, you don't want to immediately start talking about how horrible somebody messed something up or why didn't they do this. There's a different frame of mind during that time. Different techniques, different types of training. So, there were a couple statements that he made that a fingerprint examiner now would never say. Let's just say it that.
Yeah, it just isn't applicable to today's standards.
No, it's not. There really wasn't a standard. I think really he had like a month's worth of training, like the standard. He said FBI training. It was put on by the FBI. At the time, and it was about fingerprint identification, not studying the biology behind how these things, not the morphology, on how everything grows. Nowadays, if you want to be considered an expert, testify as an expert, you're going to have to know all of that as well.
Sure.
To help you interpret some of this stuff. So, it's just a different time. So I don't want to talk bad about the guy. It's just a different time.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, yeah. Think about, 10 years before that, before he came out with that, DNA was, what was DNA?
No, right.
It wasn't there. It wasn't there.
It wasn't there.
Well, when Chillicothe was on those Bigfoot shows and stuff, he was on there to give his expert opinion, and at that time, that's what he did. But I didn't know until now that he never wrote any papers or anything on it.
No, there was no writings. In fact, we talked on the phone many, many times, and I was asking for copies of his because it was stated over and over, in Meldrum's book, it was stated, on his interviews that he was doing all this research with non-human primates. But I couldn't find anywhere where it was written down, so I was like, well, what research? So basically it turns out that he was mainly just taking handprints and fingerprints, not really the feet. So I asked for the feet over and over and over. He kept sending me fingers, which was really cool. I'd not actually had that stuff, and it was fun to have him share that with me. It was really nice of him. But he really didn't focus on printing the feet, which is what I was really after. There's that. So
my question, I guess, would be: have you ever seen any casts that had dermal ridges in them?
I have seen purported dermal ridges on casts. I do have one in my possession right now that actually is kind of exciting. I haven't been able to find anything wrong with it other than its size. So when you have, like I got this great thing and there's dermal ridges on it, but it's basically like a size 12. So you do with it what you will, like I don't have the context in which, and how it was found or where it was exactly, but I can tell you that either a person made it or something else made it with dermal ridges. So I know it's not faked. I can give you that.
Well, one of the questions that I had about the dermal ridges on the casts, I mean, is it possible if someone made that track with their hands by pressing down into the dirt when that was cast?
Absolutely. In fact, I found that already.
Okay. All right.
I found, in fact, there was a cast, I'm surprised nobody has been doing this. You take those famous casts and you make a silicone mold and flip it over, and then you get to see what did it look like in the ground when these people found it. Right. So I started doing that. And on one particular famous one, it becomes very evident. You can see finger marks in it. And then in that same one, I was able to find like 5 different depressions within it, to make the full thing, 5 different times it was stepped in or pushed in with the hand. And then it becomes really evident when you put it under a microscope or just even like an electric microscope or digital microscope rather, and you can see the ridges actually just run into each other like this, and that doesn't happen. So there has to be, like we call a triradius or a delta, something that helps those ridges flow and turn away from one another, but they just can't overlap.
Right. And it's not going to be a pattern like,
No.
Finger.
So, the problem is you don't know when it occurred. Was it put into the ground and then cast, or did they mishandle this cast while it was still wet? So that's one of the things I don't want to jump to conclusions and immediately think someone was hoaxing, but did they not know how to cast properly, and were they so excited they pulled it up while it was still wet and then put fingerprints on it? So that's something you have to consider and not immediately go after them.
Yeah, but the thing about that is, David, though, I've actually cast some tracks before, and let me tell you, when you pull it up, it's got dirt all over it.
You're right.
Covered completely from, foot to heel with dirt. I mean, toe to heel with dirt. And cleaning that off is a big job in itself without destroying the cast.
And you're not wrong. What I'm trying to do is leave a door open for not being like attacking somebody, right?
I understand, yes. Yes, you don't want to look at it and say, you're hoaxing me because I see your fingerprints on there.
It comes down, in my world, it comes down to what can I 100% prove, and I can't prove that didn't happen.
Right.
Understandable.
So I gotta let it be.
Many years ago, I had a Texas game warden actually show me, and she made a print using her hand. Drew it right out. And I went, well, that could explain some dermal ridges, unfortunately. But how well known is that technique? Most people would use a stomper, I would think, but you don't know.
Well, I showed someone a bear print. It's already large. It's already close to being the right shape. And then I just stick my hand in it and help it out some.
Right. Yeah, true.
True. And I'm like, all right, well, there we go. That looks like a foot. And boom. Right. You don't even, sometimes, maybe you don't even realize you're putting dermal ridges in. People assume the dermal ridges are there and you couldn't have hoaxed it, or they didn't even think about dermal ridges. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe they weren't thinking about dermal ridges when they stuck their hand in there and they just accidentally got them.
And
Now, can dermal ridges transfer through nitrile gloves?
They can.
That's what I thought. Yep.
In fact, there are specific gloves that during COVID, they tried to go cheap and give us gloves that we weren't used to using. And the first thing we did was put them on. We rubbed our face, got some nice oil on there, and stuck them on black fingerprint cards so we could take a look at them. And lo and behold, we had dermal ridges.
Oh,
yeah.
So folks, gloving up when you do prints doesn't necessarily
that's
save the
terrible
day either.
Yeah, what we found is, and here's the kicker: you gotta have 5 mil or higher.
Okay, there you go.
5 mil or higher. They gave us the 3 mils, and we were able. So we triple gloved. We ended up having a triple glove to keep friction ridges from showing through on that particular set they gave us.
Wow. Gotcha. Now, Matt Crowley once did a study. Matt Crowley is a Bigfoot skeptic. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm actually friends with them.
Oh, there you go.
I try to learn everything I can about everybody. Everyone's opinion.
So, what's your thoughts on Matt Crowley's study about the dermal ridge evidence around the heels and stuff like that was coming from?
Okay, so we're talking about what they ended up terming desiccation ridges, I think. Right. The ridges that went vertical on the sides of the foot. That particular cast, he's not wrong. It was a casting artifact, and it was always going to be a casting artifact. And I did one video about the Onion Mountain cast, explaining it. Basically, the morphology of how the foot grows doesn't allow for the vertical ridges on the side of the foot for that length. They don't form or grow that way. So it was never, it was dumbfounding to me to just look at it and find out that there was an argument for so long about whether these were ridges or not. So for me to look at it and know how the foot grows and forms and how ridges form when you grow, I looked at it and just went, all right, 30 seconds. Those aren't ridges. They can't be. Not for that length. Now we have things called vestiges. Basically, remember I told you how ridges don't stop, like this. You can have small sections, like about an inch. Sometimes we have them on our palms. They're not rare, but they're not always there. I actually have one on the side of my foot that's about a quarter. But I found the problem I'm finding is I'm trying to do research on it. No one's studying the sides of the foot, right? They're all studying the bottom. But I found this vestige on the side of it was on the inside, not on the outside. So I started checking with a bunch of people at work. They're used to me sending an email out or calling out and going, hey, I know this sounds weird. I promise you I'm not going to put it on some weird website, but can you send me a picture of the inside of your foot, please? Or the outside of your foot so I can check this out.
Right.
And I've only found one or two, and it's always the size of a quarter if it exists, but not full length down the foot. And it wouldn't be that way.
Well, David, if you had a cast and it was showing those dermal ridges that are from the toe to the heel along the side of the foot, could that possibly be formed from an artifact of a wooden stomper?
Of
and
course.
I'm thinking the wood grain, the wood grain. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. It could also just be what we call like a compression wrinkle. Like when you step, if you see it at the tips of the toes on a lot of these footprints, where the toe steps down and it presses the soil down.
Yes.
Right on the tips, you'll see like rings that look kind of like dermal ridges, but it's really just the soil getting compressed at a different rate as the toe rides up it. And the same thing can happen on the sides. But yeah, a stomper easily. But we're talking easily, as soon as you see the width, you're like, okay, well, it was never going to be. So yeah.
Then the wooden stompers have their own downfalls too. There's no toe splay. The toes are exactly the same when they're all stamped out.
And you got the same depth pretty much with the stomper too.
Yeah,
there's no heavier depth on the heel or all coming off the ball of the foot.
Doesn't do the same thing a living foot would do.
Yeah, there's no flexibility to it. Yeah. There's no locomotion to it other than just a stamp.
I think I was looking at a cast on one of the shows that Jimmy Chillicutt was on, and he was showing the dermal ridges along the side of the foot, and I was thinking, well, how about could that be like raised wood grain, causing that from somebody hoaxing them?
So yeah, he made a comment about that, about the vertical ridges, about how they would only be found in non-human primates. But what he forgot to tell everybody is those vertical ridges are usually in the center of the foot on non-human primates. They're not on the sides. Yeah, so you have to be careful, sometimes, and just like I think Steve was saying earlier, on everyone was at a race then, to get the next big thing out.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like research steps skipped.
And at that time, his ideas were brand new too.
Oh
so
yeah, absolutely.
He was pioneering something new. He may not be perfect.
Oh no, like I said, I'm not holding it against him.
Right,
I'm just saying, no, different time.
Yeah.
Now, have you considered? Here comes Steve with another tough question for you. Have you considered if such a creature has a mid-tarsal break, how that would affect certain pressures on the foot?
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm surprised that I haven't been seeing more of, but also not surprised. I don't know if you know this. I've been conducting a bunch of bear research on bear paw pads and things like that. In fact, I'm going to be at a zoo tomorrow, or a sanctuary tomorrow. They're putting one under to do some medical stuff, and I get to go do my photographing with scales and all that.
Nice.
But what I've noticed, which is really interesting, because I assumed that with such a large pad, if it was, if the Bigfoot's foot is so large and all that weight, that it would be callousing up just like a bear's would. And then a bear's, after it gets so thick, it starts to crack. Or it has the flexion creases, and I'm like, well, I haven't seen any of those creases in any of the casts. I haven't seen any cracks, from the callus part being so built up it's starting to crack, towards the end of the season. So I find that kind of strange, that I'm not seeing this. But if such a creature exists, like we don't have an exemplar, we don't have a known sample to say how they're shedding their skin, because like we shed our skin on our hands and feet every 30 days. The cells are constantly sloughing off. But this is where it got interesting for me with bears. They don't slough theirs off like every 30 days. It just doesn't come off. Basically what happens is at the end of the year during the denning cycle, those their paw pads like start to crack and break off. Some of them have shed them off entirely like a glove. But then they end up with like fresh skin, just like our hands. And it's hard to walk on. Like it's painful for them to walk on. They'll bleed until it starts to callus up again. But during that time period, they're what they call dermal papillae. They're like little pay-like formations, like the bottom of a dog, dog's paw or cat's paw.
Right. Yeah,
a lot of those sections of their paws, I'm finding, can form lines that resemble dermal ridges, but they're like little dots. So if you took a row of those and you actually slid it during the deposition, a little movement, it would actually look like a long line of friction ridges.
Gotcha.
But then it starts to callus up and it disappears. So that would really only be, something to think about during certain times of the spring, right? Because then it starts to callus up. But I'm surprised I haven't seen any more of the, cracks or creases or anything like that.
Well, I've seen black bear tracks up close in real life, and I've not seen any. Of course, we don't have any grizzlies around here. I've not seen any grizzly tracks other than on TV and online. But do you think the grizzlies would probably do the same thing? Their skin would probably shed off and then
yeah, they do.
up?
Okay. There's a bear expert, his name's Lynn Rogers. He actually wrote this paper that inspired the research that I came across, where he went around and they actually like went into the dens, and he wrote a research paper that explains and shows all of this happening. And it was brown bears along with the black bears that do this. But it's primarily the bears in the north that actually spend time in the den. You know, the ones down here in the south, they don't actually hibernate, so to speak. It's called torpor, but they don't actually, spend that much time in the den. They come in and out, in and out, in and out, because the weather, if it warms up, they come out again.
Well, it sure would be nice if we had some skin cells in some of those Bigfoot tracks.
Hey, there's a way to do that.
Sure is.
It's called actual research, right? We could take samples. We could take samples before we cast.
Yep. All you need is a couple of buccal swabs and some tubes, and and that's
And what
I found my last track before I had that equipment. Now I have that equipment. Do you think you'd find a track?
No. Yeah, I have an entire backpack that's ready to go for anything I find. I'm ready to do like honestly, I'm ready to do a homicide in the woods.
Yep.
But I can't seem to find anything. I don't spend as much time out as everyone else, though. I still have a full-time job and spend a lot of time in my actual work.
Yeah, I think my kit consists of luminol, luminol distilled water, because it's the luminol powder that you mix with the water. Black light, obviously. Fingerprint powder, basically a lift kit. Tapes to lift the prints, cards to put the prints on, buccal swabs, tubes,
Can I make one recommendation about
Absolutely.
the luminol?
Yep.
You need to get rid of luminol and you need to switch to Blue Star.
Okay.
Blue Star will give you a longer light or it'll fluoresce longer. And also they found 2 problems wrong with luminol. It's cancer causing. It's not safe to breathe, that mist. And 2, it actually destroys DNA.
Gotcha.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. So what you got to do if you're using luminol is you got to find that stain and then swab just outside where you spray the luminol, hoping the stain kept going.
Right. Gotcha.
But Blue Star, when it lights up, you can actually swab it with the Blue Star on it, and it's still good.
Now, a question I have too is, doesn't luminol give off some false positives?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what's there? Was it mink? I can't remember. I think it's mink blood, copper. There's some cleaning products. Pretty much you got to practice with those things to understand what you're seeing and not automatically assume that what you're seeing fluoresce is actual evidence.
Right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
You're absolutely right. That's a kicker. You're right to mention that. That's
Yeah, it's like I read somewhere that luminol does give off some false positives on some things, and I was like, I better mention that.
yeah. You can hit a penny. There's some cleaning products in cars where people are like, oh my god, look at all that blood. I'm like, nah, it's not.
And up in our area, believe it or not, we have a few copper mines.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that could cause, with the copper reaction to luminol, it could cause this whole rock is covered with blood.
Massacre.
Yeah, right.
MK was right.
Yeah. All MK. Massacre scene right here.
Right. Chris, you want to get to some of our questions we have?
Yeah. We've got a bunch starred here. Kaiju Ninja, 1985. We'll put yours up here, Kaiju. Says, in David's opinion, what are the top pieces of collected evidence data that could have come from an unknown species that might be associated with Sasquatch?
I've not seen any.
Top pieces of data.
Honestly, I've not seen any. But I'm also not privy to everyone else's research or anything like that. So just because I'm not aware of it doesn't mean. I mean, I know Darby Orcutt and Cliff, they've been doing a eDNA study, which is awesome. Because they're not just taking DNA samples and running it through databases of known existing animals. They're actually trying to sequence it from the beginning, which is something that hasn't been done before. And that's a pretty fascinating project. For me, it would be some of these casts that I get. I get excited early on, and then I get unexcited. Like this last one, I really wish it had been like a 17-incher, right? And I was able to have these dermal ridges tracing all the way across a really wide foot. Then I would go, hey, I have something. But the thermals that I keep getting are all human sized, and it's starting to get a little irritating because I really need something.
Yeah, but David, you got to consider these things aren't born 8 feet tall.
I know. The problem is if you want to use it as evidence in an argument,
right,
it's going to have to be something more extraordinary than already our size.
Yeah, you hold that cast up, and somebody's going to say, "Well, that looks like that could be my foot." Yeah.
Yep.
I got
and it's over unless you have a bunch of other evidence to go along with it.
Right.
Kind of like you're building a case for court.
Right. And let's see, Chris Blaylock commented earlier. We were talking about going over some of the old evidence. She said, "I think it's a great idea to go back and look at the old evidence with our new knowledge and technology." And that is a very good statement. I agree 100%. I would love to if they could go over some of the old evidence, which everything's been handled now, so that would kind of negate the possibility of getting eDNA from it. But
yeah, DNA is getting so good now. We actually just submitted. Make sure I word this correctly so I don't give anything away. A fingerprint card from a cold case from the 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
You're now able to extract DNA from the powdered fingerprints from underneath the tape.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Cool. That is cool.
That's how minute a sample that we're able to get now. Think about it, the tape has basically preserved this, and it's been in a bag kept away from any UV light,
Right.
So it's just been stored in a dark place, basically preserving this.
Wow. So that's amazing when you think about it. Now a fingerprint can go back to a DNA match. The heck with actually having to go and match a fingerprint.
Yeah,
you can match the DNA.
Yeah, and it's one of our methods when we're on scenes. Since I'm an examiner, sometimes I'll, with a loop on some of the bigger scenes, get up and close and try to decide if it's worth taking as a fingerprint sample, or should I just go ahead and destroy it and take the DNA off of it.
So this leads me to the thought of there was a guy out in California, David, I think Rodriguez, and had these big claims a few years ago that he caught all these handprints on his vehicle and they fingerprint lifted them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if David really wants to take his research to the next level and prove it's Bigfoot, and this will tell whether or not this is real or, just a publicity stunt.
Oh, Kaiju Ninja had a question like that too.
Yes, it'll cost money, but you're right. You can go down that road.
Yeah, why not just get those fingerprints and DNA tested?
Yeah. I'm gonna put this up. Kaiju Ninja, the comment. This is not too long ago, but he said, in terms of fingerprints, handprints, have you seen them with that weird white oil substance on glass windshields? People have found handprints within a white substance in them, I guess.
Yeah, High Check is pushing that. It stemmed from some of the. I have some issues with some of this stuff, but I haven't actually been able to see it in person, and that's my problem with it.
Right.
So the premise is we have eccrine glands, we have apocrine glands. The apocrine are the ones in our hairy areas that have all the sebum and the oils and all that kind of stuff. So they're saying that there are a bunch of gorillas in captivity, including some spider monkeys I recently saw at a sanctuary. They'll actually take their hands and rub the underside of their armpits.
Right. Yeah.
And they'll wipe it on the cage and wipe it in different places, basically saying, this is my area. Here's my smell. Here's, they're marking their territory. Mm-hmm. And that stuff, according to the zookeepers, turns like this milky white, hard, crusty stuff when it dries, and it's really hard to clean and get off. And some people have reported, having fingerprints or hand marks, from a purported Bigfoot, and having that same type of sticky substance that was hard to remove. My issue is, if you picture like a dog's wiping his nose on your car window, it'll look similar to that. My issue is I just haven't seen it in person. I'm hoping that people are swabbing this substance and
It'd be a good
actually
idea to
doing
start,
something
yeah.
with it.
I'm pretty sure Alex did too when he got those prints up in Alaska. So I don't know if they've been tested or not. I know he was in the planning to have them tested either by maybe Darby. Maybe that's one of the stuff he's looking at with Doug. Chris, let's get to Sally's question. I think that's a great question. too.
Yeah, Sally says, so once upon a time, we were told that each primate species had a unique dermal ridge patterns, which should help prove a new primate species. Is this accurate?
Not
Yeah.
not entirely.
Not entirely, yeah.
Okay, so the difference is and it works and it's a great question. So what I found, and the smarter the primate, the more dense the ridges. We have more ridges, right? And it's not necessarily for like climbing. It's for tool use. So like the gorillas, the bonobos, the chimps, their fingerprints are going to look a lot closer to ours. Now they're still going to differ between, like I had a bonobo name, Mark, and another bonobo name, someone else. They're still going to have different fingerprints. One might have whorls and loops, a mixture of, and the other one might have an arch. Primarily, most of them are arches that I've seen in these particular things, but they're still going to be different. When you get into the smaller, like the monkeys that are more arboreal, their ridges start to space out a little bit more. And if you think about it, it's kind of like traction on a tire. Like they need more gripping power, for climbing, but not so much for tool use.
So you're talking about the distance between each.
You'll have like, exactly. So each ridge, it's not just about gripping. It's about the tactile sensation. So you have a bunch of nerves. So the more ridges you have, the more nerve endings are going to the surface for you to touch things, feel things, be able to manipulate them. Right. So I would suspect that I'm guessing it has to be, if Bigfoot exists, that he would have small ridges like us, just because I'm adding, because I don't know, but I'm assuming intelligence, right? Because I don't think that there's a stupid creature out there that's been able to remain undetected. Honestly, that's just my opinion. But I could be wrong, obviously.
Problem-solving intelligence,
right? But that's just coming at it from a fingerprint perspective. That's kind of what led me down that road. But they're going to be a mixture. But if you're talking about like what we call developmental stability, like all our fingerprints are pretty much, like males are pretty much the same width, ridge to ridge distance. You can look at females who are smaller, their fingerprints are a lot more dense. They have a lot more of them because they're smaller. But
does that mean the small females are smarter than us males?
Hell yeah, it does. You're not catching me in that one. You're not catching me in that one. Nope.
Well, what are you trying to say?
Enough of that.
Well, Chris, we'll give the ding to that particular answer. Yeah, that's right.
Oh man. Okay. Well, Danny Weeks got one. Danny says, "Don't
Bigfoot.
buy."
I think he meant BF ridges.
Yeah, I think Bigfoot. Bigfoot ridges run counter to human.
And Danny, your caps lock is on.
I don't know what that means.
Not certain.
Yeah, I think in the original science, Legend Meets Science that Doug Hychek did, I think Jimmy Chilcutt had made a comment that the Bigfoot ridges run counter to what the humans were.
Okay,
and
that doesn't make any sense to me. And
I think he was saying the patterns were unique, and I don't know.
So it would go back to how the foot is grown. So I'm trying to all right, so you take like a zebra, right? It's got stripes that are going up and down long ways, right? That's how the zebra grew. It grew this way, and as it grows, a ridge fills in, a ridge fills in, a ridge fills in. You can actually look and see what direction your hand or your foot grew by looking at the ridges. They fill in long ways, right? Or whichever direction is called growth stress. Whichever way you were growing, ridges filled in that way. So if you imagine a foot when it's our hands, or a foot when we were born, they're little tiny things, and they slowly come out that way, right?
Right.
So that's why you have your ridges going this way, like long ways, or you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So you would have to have, like, I get it, it's a Bigfoot and it's probably going to grow slightly differently, right? And that's where, like, the great apes come in. Like, if their foot grows slightly different, it's growing out this way, then that long ridge, it forms in the center, not on the outside edges. Those outside edges were already there when we were born, right? It formed in utero. So when it starts to spread out, it's filling in the center. It's not filling out on the edges. So those were already like that. Right. I don't know how to explain it without like a chart. I have like a whole presentation that I can do just on how the ridges form. But
well, the ones that bothered me. Well, there's two types that bothered me. The ones where has the long lines all the way down the side of the foot. That looks kind of wooden stomperish to me, wood grain. And then the other ones is where you could see fingerprints that had actually shaped the foot before it was cast, I think.
But Chris, I think a wood grain doesn't necessarily capture in a print. Like a piece of wood has grain. A piece of wood has grain on it and on stompers. But as they go into the ground, they don't leave the wood grain in the stomper because that wood grain is pretty smooth.
Yeah, but as the wooden stomper gets wet, it swells, and that wood grain is more prominent. It moves out away from the other smooth part of the wood. Believe me.
If it gets wet.
But again, you're right. But the problem is again, you have to have that sample of that particular stomper.
Right.
Because some people take pride in their work. Maybe they want the stomper to last, and they've sanded it and they've stained it. And those ridge.
Well, there was a set of tracks that Jimmy Chillicutt looked at, and I think it was Jimmy. I think it was him. And he said, "Well, this is interesting because it shows an old injury, and this injury had healed." And the tracks were the casts were made, I don't know, so many miles apart, different part of the county or something. And that injury seemed like to me, I thought at the time, could be a rock mark in a wood stomper.
Well, I would like to see the actual, pictures to go along with the statement.
Yes.
I think that's something that's missing from a lot of these statements is the actual, pictures to go along with it. So when you say stuff like that, I'm like, I know exactly what he's talking about. I know how it would look. I have scarring on my hands. I've seen scars before. There's a difference between a crease and a scar. It's very easy to tell. So when you see, even certain types of, genetic anomalies like dysplasia, things like that, it all presents pretty much the same way. And you can get a good pattern and it. But
I think that might
if you're going to say stuff, you need to show it.
I think that might have been featured in Legend Meets Science. I believe those two different casts, I believe. And to show an injury and show signs where it had healed, that's kind of
that sounds like scarring to me.
That's interesting. Okay. Grant Rasha says, David, do you use a 10 print card for fingerprints for Squatches?
I get the joke, but hey, I've never. I don't have a Sasquatch that's been fingerprinted before for me to compare. So.
roll your finger. Oh man. Oh no, Grant. Most Bigfoot researchers really people with foot fetishes. Yeah, Grant. Yeah, they're interested in the tracks, but. Lori Gibbs. Yeah, we were talking about wooden stompers. Yeah, Lori's right. Wood stomper, someone who puts on wooden shoes and is pretending. They put on wooden Bigfoot carvings.
And you know, I saw a really good one on Etsy the other day. It actually, attaches to your boot, and it's made out of latex rubber, and you can walk. And they got creases and everything in it.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
Oh, these guys.
But what they don't get is that, for the most part, those toe splays will be pretty much the same.
Well, if they make them flexible, if it's made out of rubber,
I don't think they're smart enough to realize that. Let's not advertise that.
Yeah, well,
right.
It's possible.
I'm going to need 15 different types.
See, that's the only problem, though. Even if the toes are moving around, it's not going to demonstrate the same movement as a real living foot.
Yeah, the splay won't be the same, or they'll look almost like crooked toes all of a sudden. Prints that.
Well, it's going to be a stomper that has varying toe splay. That's all it's going to be. Okay, Robert Lampton, and I've got to get back into the chat because there's probably much more questions I hadn't started yet. But Robert says, what explains the difference in foot shape of Bigfoot prints in comparison with primate footprints?
Or known primate footprints, because Bigfoot would be a primate.
Like the midfoot side digit.
I think he's talking about that. The difference is that like gorillas and chimpanzees have that offset toe, which goes back to their arboreal days, rather than, and the same thing with the orangutans. Whereas, Bigfoot prints and ours, where the only comparison we have, the only similarity we have, and this is my understanding, and believe me, I'm a pretty damn good tracker when it comes to this, is that the only difference between a Bigfoot print and a human print is, the only similarity, I should say, is that they have inline toes like us. Not quite like us, but they have inline toes. They lack an arch. They lack a ball of the foot. They're pretty much flat-footed, and they're much wider than human feet. But and they show a lot of times a good possibility of a mid-tarsal break as opposed to a foot that hinges on the ball of the foot, because they've lacked the ball of the foot. And mid-tarsal breaks go back to our relic ancestors, such as Homo naledi, which had inline toes but also showed signs of a mid-tarsal break. I think I'm not, well, I don't want to get into it without really having it in front of me, but there are a couple of other Australopithecines and that exhibited both inline toes and signs of a mid-tarsal break, and that was because they were coming off of the evolutionary path of being arboreal to being more of a ground-driven creature. I don't know if David can add to
that. That was very nice. I like that. That was awesome. Yeah, that was fantastic. Good job.
It's amazing that, you never stop learning. And the beginning of this year, I really took a big deep dive into foot structure and our ancestry, where it came from, how they, especially when we started doing the Homo naledi episode, we talked,
that was a good episode.
That was really fascinating stuff, how the transition from arboreal to ground dwelling. And because even chimpanzees, they do climb, and gorillas, when they're very young, climb a lot. Then they get old and fat, and kind of like us humans, we don't climb as much. But we are at some point, and I've always said this, that in our behavior cycles, we are all arboreal, because if you think about it, that's why we have jungle gyms in playgrounds, because we like to climb. It's why we climb trees as youths. We're learning about our hands and our feet. And even our ground-based primates, like the gorillas, when they're young, they climb trees because they're exploring what their hands and feet can do. You know what? Let's take a few more questions, Chris, on foot structure. And then at the top of the hour, I want to talk about a whole nother topic that David has a lot of experience in, and that's polygraphy.
Oh my goodness.
And he's like, yeah.
Maybe
he's
we
like,
should
"Oh,
introduce that.
I'm going to, yeah, that's right.
Okay. This is Jen's got a question. This was a little bit earlier. Jen said, where in the print would be the best place to try to get a DNA sample for? I guess
Oh, that's a
great question.
No, that's a great question. So for me, I already would have taken like a billion photographs from different angles, different, side lighting. I mean, we call oblique lighting, side lighting. And during that lighting, what I'm looking for, are there any details within this that I need to 100% preserve? Right. And if I find an area that I say, all right, well, you know what, there's not really any detail over here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to record myself taking a sample from this area. So you know that after I cast it, that is not a defect or a part of the cast. You know where that mark came from in the cast. And then I'm going to label it on the cast such as this is where I took my sample. So there is no question. I mean, so it's pretty easy if you just work through it. It takes a lot of time and effort. I think it's worth it in the end, because I think in the end, DNA, I think, is where this is really going to end up moving to, unless you get one of those giant samples like I talked about that happen to have ridges that you can trace all the way across. That's going to be like the big golden goose egg thing, I think it's going to be so rare to get that we really should be focusing on DNA. I think we should be.
About that eDNA. I'm so excited about that. And as it progresses, I hope they'll be able to one day just take a water sample from the local streams and then run it through and say, hey, we got non-human primate DNA here. What's this?
Well, I'd also like to add really fast, if you're going to take an eDNA sample out of a print, then you need to take a couple control samples from the ground outside of the print, at least 4 or 5 feet away, because remember, we're going to be looking for the difference. Because DNA, it's been covered, it's being preserved and covered. It can be there for years. You're going to get all kinds of mixtures. So we're going to be looking, and since we don't have a database with a known sample, we're going to be looking for the difference, something to focus on.
And just to be clear, when they take a DNA sample from a print, it's not eDNA. That's actually just a very tiny DNA sample. And due to the amplification processes that have advanced over the years, now they can take a very minute sample and amplify it to give a
you're taking a small soil sample, right? That's what you're doing.
Okay, Kaiju Ninja. Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. Kaiju Ninja says, did the Patterson casts have dermal ridges?
Not that I'm aware of.
I didn't know.
I would have thought that would have been a big deal.
Nobody talked about it either. Yeah.
Well, DNA back in then, even dermal ridges was a very far discussion. Again, another time.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, too. After those were cast, they may have sanded them off. Oh, it was in sand, too. Sand. It was a sandbar, so that probably wouldn't leave.
You're not going to get any dermal ridges out of sand.
Right. Let's see. Henry May. Henry says, HBM's Cryptid Corner. Henry says, what's the most challenging substrate to cast footprints in?
Dry sand.
Good question. Yeah. I agree.
You already don't have that good a detail in the dry sand.
Right.
And, when you're going to use something like a fixative or something like that, honestly, what I do for that is I pick another spot in the sand that is not my footprint, and I'll actually do a test sample. Because every soil is different. You think I've done dry sand before, it's the same, but it's not. There's different makeups, different sizes of that substrate. Right. So I'll literally, spray my hairspray or my fixative up in the air, and I'll let it fall down so I can figure out which way the wind's blowing, and I let it fall down by itself. And then I'll touch that area to see, okay, so this is about how much I need for this particular sand before I start to destroy it. Because the more
Right.
stuff you put on there, the more destructive you're being.
Right.
So I'll actually do a whole section next to it to test before I start messing with my sand.
And sand can be distinctly different depending on the moisture content.
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and you gotta think about wind. That's another variable. Messing with your sand.
Right.
Yeah, I carry an umbrella now. That's a head umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
It packs away like a tiny little umbrella, but it's about 2.5 to 3 feet wide, and it doesn't have a handle, so I can literally just, while I'm working other stuff, I can cover it up and protect it from if there's any wind or anything going while I'm preparing to do things.
Yeah. While you're mixing.
Yeah, while I'm mixing, while I'm getting my gear out, all kinds of things. I'm like, let's go ahead and cover it up. The wind's blowing.
Varex said in David's book, Casting Bigfoot Evidence, a guide, does he cover DNA sample collection, such as trace evidence, environmental DNA, eDNA, or hair and other biological samples?
No, that book was primarily about, each chapter was dedicated to a different type of soil or substrate. It's casually mentioned, but I'm actually working on a whole new project right now. I'm very close to finishing. It's called the New Bigfoot Standard. And it's about everything you need to do before you do the casting process. Like the things we're talking about, photographing correctly, deciding to take samples, eDNA samples, or how to collect hair, all those different types of things. Because there's a whole thing that we're missing that I'm finding as I do this more. We're basically taking a few pictures and moving straight to casting, and we're missing a lot of things.
Yeah. And what I'd like to see too is people start putting those evidence markers down with the 1, the 2, the 3, so people can actually write, okay, item 1 is this, item 2 is that, item 3 is that. So when you actually get a breakdown.
Yeah, it's one of the first things I do, especially outdoors. I use those utility flags as markers.
All right.
And I just write the number right on the flag. And before I start taking close-up photos, I take a big blown-up picture of that flag with the number, so that every picture now that comes next is that item, and no matter what. And if I move on to a different item, then you'll see a big blown-up number 2, and then so you'll know everything is a part of that. But you're wrong. No one's really marking anything, giving them item numbers, so you can refer to it in your report. I'd hurt myself if I actually went out now. Honestly, I'd be really upset if I found something and I didn't have an item marker.
You're like, son of a...
I'd be like, I'm writing this on a leaf. Gonna...
Where's the damn Post-it notes?
Because I always got a Sharpie with me, no matter what. So.
I'm still starring these questions. You guys got a lot of questions tonight. Thank you.
Well, Danny asked, one of the questions out there was Danny Weeks asked, are the stomper tracks 4 feet apart? Doesn't necessarily matter. To me, a stomper is a stomper, even if they're 4.5 feet apart, because somebody could have stomped one out, took it off, walked over here, dug another one in, moved over, and dug another one in. It's all about process. Just because they have a stomper doesn't mean they're just walking around like willy-nilly.
Right. And some of the ones that were taken next to these roadways or along the side of the roadways would be really highly suspect in these dusty forest roads. Because, somebody could be driving along in a pickup truck, and then one guy with the stompers grab the bed of the pickup truck and raise his foot up, and then wait a half a second or two, and then put his foot down, and we got 6 foot stride.
now let me just bring up a context. And David, Chris, and I were talking earlier, and he didn't name names or anything like that, but there's one track he looked at where, and this is what folks need to think to have a higher game, I think, and it certainly put a notion in my head, and so I learned from David. Hopefully. I will learn some more over the coming months and years. But here's an example of where he found dermal ridges going one way and dermal ridges going another way inside the same print. Does that mean that somebody made it with their hand? Well, not necessarily, because it could have been the handling of perhaps a wet cast. So just because something may seem like one thing may not necessarily mean it is that thing. You have to consider all the possibilities. So when you ask Danny about stompers being 4 foot apart, that's only, you know, that I understand what you're saying. Well, if they're 4 feet apart, the stride of that person would make it. It depends on how they're making the tracks, and we don't know if we all we're doing is find tracks. We don't know how, and if they're stompers, we don't know how they're made. They could have put a stomper down, pounded it down with a hammer, and then moved it over to another one 4.5 feet later, or they could have been walking too. So, you know, or jumping, you know, running. If you look at some of the old In Search of. There was one guy that was wearing stompers, I think, in one particular episode, and he was running around in snow, and he was hopping, he was jumping, to get those big strides. Right. So you don't know how they're being made, so you really if they're a phony print because the toe splays are all the same and they're exact same print, every left foot is the same, every right foot is the same. If you don't know how they're made, you know, it doesn't take the fact away that they're still a stomper, no matter what the distance is between them. So I don't know if David's got anything to add about that, but
no. The only thing I have to add is it gives the wrong people the wrong ideas on how to create that space,
right.
And I'm not helping you.
Yeah,
I'm just highly skeptical when it comes to tracks. You know, whether. To me, when I first see a track, it's fake until, you know, otherwise. But
unless of course, Chris, it's made when you hear it go walking by you, which was my case. What the hell was that? What that? Yeah. I had a case. I have the Ford cast, and many months later, a year and a half, I think later, another gentleman cast a very similar print off in another part of the park. And literally, you could hear it walk around us, and we smelled it. And boom, that stench hit. And it kept moving on. And there was this huge track off to the side. And then we found the whole trackway the next day coming up the hill. And it had like a 40 to 48 inch stride going up quite a steep grade. So it was like, oh. And all the we couldn't cast some of the others because there was so much leaf litter, but you could see where it just mashed it out. And a couple of them, one of them we probably could have got away with printing, but it was on such an angle that we were afraid if we poured it, the casting material would probably slough off and go down the hill. And
do like Scott did. His cast looked like a snake. Trying to cast one on the hillside, and it poured out the heel.
Yeah, and I know times are changing, you know, like in that instant now, you know, if that were to happen now, I'm hoping that it would be okay, I can't cast it, but maybe I should take some of these leaves with me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And
that was back in 2006. So that was before we even thought about taking DNA off of prints or anything like that.
No, I get it. Yeah. I just wanted to put it out there for the other people.
Yeah.
That, hey, just because we're not looking just to cast, we're looking for everything we can find.
Yeah, and next week, Kulls comes back with a bag full of leaves. Here, we got it.
Put them in paper, stick them in the freezer.
Well, we'll take vacuum cleaners out with us in the woods and start.
Steve gets thrown out of the house the next day because he took all the frozen food out of the freezer and put all the DNA samples in it.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with this forensics, you know, I mean, you got to take the woods with you or what? I mean, I don't understand.
Hey, I'll go ahead and tell you, we're talking about something undiscovered, you know, something that hasn't, you know, technically evidence, you know, we haven't proven it, right?
Right.
So,
It's not in the books
I get people have had sightings and they have their proof. If we're talking about collecting evidence, purely academic,
right,
then we don't have it. So I would recommend treating this like a homicide, a crime scene. I find a footprint and I suspect it may be an actual Bigfoot. Well, then I feel like I have the responsibility to the rest of the world because that's a big deal. that'll make worldwide news if you find something like that.
That
So
is,
you have a responsibility, honestly, if you're calling yourself a researcher and you're out there collecting evidence, then maybe we ought to be doing it correctly, because it's kind of a big deal. So treat it like a crime scene. Treat it like you just found a body, a dead body. What are you going to do? Take your time. That's all. I'm off my little soapbox. I'm done.
Well, I certainly look at casting a track a lot differently now, and footprints differently now. Realizing now that there may be some DNA within the track itself. It would be worth it to take the time to take a sample. Now, a few years ago, well, not that long ago at all, it wouldn't even occur to me. And most of the time, I think it's a waste of time to make a cast if you're in an area that you see tracks quite often. But what can you learn? I mean,
I would also throw this out there. What do you do with the cast that you get?
Right.
As a researcher, what are you doing with them? Are they poor? Did they even deserve to be casted?
Right.
I get, of course, everyone's going to cast everything. I'm going to cast everything I can, but I'm also not going to take all of those and throw them up and say, look, I have proof, I have evidence, look what I casted. Because basically they show me nothing. But, and that's one of the words, I don't want to say it this way. We're talking about civility with researchers, right? I don't want to say, like they're not worth anything, but sometimes they're not, and if you start flooding I don't want to say flood the market, if you start flooding the market with bad evidence, then it gets hard to discern, what's good, what's real, what's bad. There's so much out there, and it's making it hard to collect real data.
You are 1,000% right. And civility means that as researchers, we should be able to talk about. Doesn't mean not calling out people that are putting out really bad evidence all the time. And we see channels like that all the time, that every time they go out, they have Bigfoot evidence. Oh, we heard this, we heard that, but there's nothing tangible. They've never recorded anything. They haven't. And then, of course, we get the layout of the excuses. Well, they didn't want us recording them. Okay. But
if we put a camera out there, they won't come around. They know it's there.
Right. And that was, and that we always try to debunk that to people. Well, maybe they can see in the infrared. Well, the camera only shoots off infrared when it triggers, and you try to kill that debate, real quick. That, we got to stop making excuses for, not getting evidence. Mm-hmm. Okay, we just didn't get evidence. I mean, should we expect it, having the population they do? If they have the population, let's say there's just 5,000 of them in the U.S., that's a very small population to be spread out amongst the 50 states. Yeah. Actually, 48 or 49 states. Because Hawaii doesn't count because it's a volcanic island, right? So when you have that kind of population dispersed over such a large country, I mean, you go up to Research 1, which is my primary. I mean, I think we've seen like 3 deer in 25 years of being there. It's not until the lower elevations that we actually see the deer, but you get up to the actual research area, which is up. I've seen one deer. I got up one morning and there was a deer, and there was another time somebody caught one on thermal, marching his way through. Other than that, I don't really recall that. So I said 3 to be a little generous. But 3 in 25 years, and the deer population in New York is in the millions. So, let's stop making excuses, phony excuses up for why we didn't capture it on a trail camera. Trail camera is a needle in a haystack. 5 trail cameras up in an area is still 5 needles in a haystack. That's the reality of it. It has nothing to do with they can see an IR, because no primate can see an IR. I don't think even any mammals can see an IR, but in the reptilians, some certain reptiles can, certain fish can. But primates definitely do not see in the IR or any other spectrum other than what we see.
Well, the thing of it is, I'm pretty certain they see a whole lot better than we do in the dark.
Agreed, because there's evidence of that tapetum lucidum.
Mm-hmm.
When you see that eye shine. I mean, when I saw mine, there was eye shine very clear.
Right.
You know, and then blinking back at me. The second one, no, he was motivating. The second one I had seen, the little guy, he was motivating. I didn't even get to see really a full frontal shot. I got to see a side shot of him going off into the woods because he heard me getting out of my tent. He's like, I better get out of here. And so there is a couple of quick questions, like, have Gigantopithecus prints ever been found? No. The only evidence they've ever found of a giganto was, why didn't that come off? Did you put that back up, Chris?
No, sir.
I took it off and it came back up. So now it's...
Let me click it.
There we go. Because it's gone off my screen.
Okay. It was still on mine.
Yeah, literally, I clicked off it and it disappeared, but it didn't disappear off the screen. Screen mirror glitch.
That's great. Well, we needed to have we needed to have one tonight. That's better than we've had before, though. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, so Kaiju Ninja asks again, David, what do you think of Patty's tracks?
I don't really have an opinion on them. I mean, I've seen the cast. It looks about the same as all the other casts that I've seen. Right. I think my biggest problem with the cast, I mean, like, I mean, specific to Patty, I mean, I don't know what to say to that other than, okay. I mean, I got that one on my wall, right? It's right there on my wall. And right above it, I got a bear, just as a reminder not to jump to conclusions. But
and Danny Weeks had a comment on it. Now, a lot of people are firm believers in the Patterson-Gimlin film here. So Danny says, PG video, not proof? Well,
unfortunately, it's not.
No, Danny, it's not.
Yeah, unfortunately, unless you can 1,000% rule out hoaxing, you can't. Now, I agree. There's a great timeline to it. There is a lot of, research with secondary witnesses such as Al Hodgson and L. Del Atley, who kind of backed up some of the things that Roger and Patterson and Gimlin had said in their timelines.
Yeah. It certainly looks good.
I look at, but, then you have this and we pretty much broke down Hieronymus's claims and Philip Morris's claims, along with the Greg Long book, and how that was kind of a very biased look at things, because at the very beginning, Greg Long says that somebody had badmouthed Patterson, and that put the notion in his idea, the notion of the idea in his head to investigate this, but he was doing it from a biased perspective, I feel. So, yeah,
it's not proof.
It's not proof, unfortunately. Proof would be something physical that you,
is it?
I don't think a film would ever. Yeah,
I think it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's just not quite enough.
Right. Exactly. Not saying it's not real. Just saying that.
If MK's theory is real, then we could go there and dig up some bones somewhere or something.
Oh, we can just take some soil samples down a few feet down and get the blood.
Yeah. I'm sure it's still there.
Pancho Zorch question
said, the Bigfoot reality check. Has anyone asked about using latex?
Chris, the Bigfoot reality check is our name.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with using latex or silicone, rather.
Okay.
I would use silicone before latex, just because some of the silicones that I've played with offer a little bit more detail, more flexibility when removing things. But still, I think the problem is if you handle it too much, you're still prone to making changes to it. Like not like some of those dental stones where once
Yeah.
it's cured, I can take a hard brush and like scrub the hell out of it.
Right.
And I'm not leaving a mark.
Right.
I can't do that with silicone. I can be very careful, clean it, wash it, and then it's pretty much like, all right, well, don't mess with it too much. I have some silicone bare feet casts over there or whatever, and I've actually damaged those, and that's why I said that.
Well, I could see if you were recasting or making a cast of another cast, a copy of a cast using a silicone mold.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, and to me, if you're using, if you're casting a print that's in the ground, though, it seems like that silicone would pick up a lot of stuff in that print.
It does, but at the same time, I mean, that's a good thing. It's picking up all the detail.
Right.
But it's flexible for you to be able to remove it too. You just have to be careful when you're cleaning it that you don't add anything to it. I mean, it's pretty durable, but I just noticed that. I mean, at one time I would have said interchangeable until I damaged some of my own over here. And then I was like, oh, well, I haven't damaged any of my dental stone stuff. So,
well, I love dental stone. But the first time I used it, though, it begged the question, while it was curing, you could put your hand about that far above the track, 2 or 3 inches, and you could feel the heat coming off that dental stone as it cured. And that led me to wonder, how were these guys able to cast tracks in the snow? They couldn't have been using dental stone because it would have really melted out.
So it's all about that first layer, right?
Yeah.
That first layer. So, they have those spray waxes that you can spray in. Because remember, in snow, you're not getting dermal ridges in snow.
Right.
It's just not happening. You're getting, the overall footprint. You're getting
the
shape,
shape,
shoe impressions, something like that.
Right.
So, they have those snow waxes, those spray snow waxes. They have this sulfur product that you can actually use, and you're actually casting with it. I've seen some guys use like a light layer of like acrylic paint, like a primer, to give it a nice little thing. And then they sprinkle in the, like with a flour sifter, the dental stone, to get it started. And they use some of that wetness that's beginning. And then once they've got like a nice little hard layer starting to form, then they go ahead and pour.
And do the pour after.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a 2-layer kind of thing happening.
The first details first.
Yeah. Preserve those. The
fine details first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. Got another one here. Kaiju Ninja brought up a question. I said, does everyone think Bigfoot can walk on all fours?
I can.
I think it's possible. I can do it too. So, if we can do it, surely they can do it too. I don't know if they would spend much time walking around like gorillas, though.
I think if they have their shape right, how they depict it on a regular basis, I wouldn't picture it on all fours, especially that spider thing people keep talking about.
Right.
That's kind of driving me a little crazy.
Well, there's a couple of thoughts I have on this whole process is that because they are upright and bipedal, when you get down into that quad mode, that puts a lot of stress on the lower back because of the bend.
Does mine. Yeah.
Right. The other thing that may assist with that, however, is the mid-tarsal brake. If they truly have a mid-tarsal brake, it could pivot up a little bit, moving it forward and being able to do that deftly. So there's 2 schools of thought. If they did not have a mid-tarsal brake, I would say absolutely not, they couldn't do that. But since they do have I believe they do have a mid-tarsal brake, I believe it's a possibility that they may do it for, cover.
Right.
There have been reports of people seeing a Bigfoot in a 4x4 mode. They see them and standing up. Now, is that a bear misidentification? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. But I'm with you. I think primarily it would be on 2 feet, and the other method would be more of a specific activity that they're doing that would require it. You know, like being sneaky or more stealth-like or something like that.
Yet if we look at the squeaky thermal image, is that it actually walking on 4s a bit coming in, doing the 4x4 mode, or was it a crawl? Because in the squeaky video, it looks like it's doing a crawling up to the area, which would kind of negate why they would even go into a 4x4 mode. So it's hard to tell. It's one of those questions we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched the squeaky video, but yeah, it seemed like it was kind of acting stealthy.
But even then, you're talking about one video. You don't have like a couple hundred videos of them doing this to form an opinion yet, right?
Right. It's kind of like what I say with the Sierra Sounds and the Kurt Nelson study. You only have one sample there. You can't call it a language unless you have multiple samples from multiple people.
Right. And multiple experts reviewing each other as well.
Right. Exactly. That too.
And Kaiju Ninja says, have unknown primate hairs been found with footprints?
I have no idea. Do
That's
you guys
the
know?
goal.
Because that would be awesome.
Well, you know, you always hear so-and-so we found, hair from an unknown primate. Oh, really? Really? Where's the report on that?
All you got to do is ask them what lab.
Yeah. Where's the report? There's
Just
so many
tell
of
me
these.
the name of the lab.
You know, I've been watching so many of these, over the years, I've watched so many of these Bigfoot documentaries, and they keep on saying, oh, yeah, this is hair from an unknown primate. Is it really?
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you something that a lot of people don't address, and that is, what is that lab's definition of unknown primate? Does human fall within that?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it does. Because if the sample is so degraded that they can't distinguish between, say, a gorilla and a human, then they're going to call it unknown primate if it's that degraded. Because remember, we're not looking to match DNA to, like, say, me. They're looking to just identify what animal it is. So they're putting it in a database of known samples.
So I am going to have a talk with Paul Bartholomew this week. And he has a hair that was in a frame given to him by Dr. Warren Cook, who is his mentor, an anthropologist, physical anthropologist, Castleton State University, who was a very firm believer that this thing existed. In fact, Dr. Warren Cook was actually a Pulitzer Prize nominee for some of the ancient archaeological digs in Vermont. I mean, he was not a minor league professor. And he went over to China, and he was presented with a Yeren hair with a lab report. Unfortunately, the lab report's in Chinese. And it was framed, and it's been sitting in that frame. Now, I'm wondering if Paul would be open to having that hair. Fortunately, I think it may only be a single strand hair. There may be several, but maybe he would be willing to submit one of those hairs to DNA study. Because now what we can do with hair is much, much more different.
Yeah, it's that's a lot of money when you're talking about extract, especially if it doesn't have the root or the bulb or whatever you decide to call it at the end, and you're going after the mitochondrial DNA inside the shaft. That's quite an expensive procedure.
Yeah. And the other thing too is I don't know if it has a bulb on the hair. I didn't really look at it under, I was actually shown it. I looked at it, but I didn't have my magnifying glass to really go over it very carefully. And at that time,
I don't know though, man.
Again, this is 2003 when I saw that particular item.
Dude,
so.
if it came from China, just let me ask you something. Have you ever ordered anything from Wish?
Or Timu? No, but this was this is a little bit different. The fact is that Cook went to there and went to some of their scientists.
Well, okay. All right. I'm not saying they're dishonest, but I've had a lot of.
If it was Russia, I'd be a little more concerned because
Grisha
had some really wild things going on over there.
The car driving, cell phone using Bigfoot. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Oh yeah, Grisha can drive a tractor too. I saw a video with Grisha driving a tractor.
Oh, someone just said so. No need to reinforce podcast like with sticks, etc. That's a hard pass. That's a no if you're using dental stone.
Oh yeah.
There's no reason to do that whatsoever.
The dental stone, especially, and I don't know about the other because I've only used the dental stone, but the dental stone is hard as a rock. As soon as it cures. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Okay, so that's our question.
If you were using plaster, I don't know.
You should never be using plaster.
That's the thing. Plaster is really weak. Really weak. It's like
it also doesn't get near the details of the dental stone.
Right. You're making a track out of chalk, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Danny Weeks says he's got hydrocal. I have hydrocal in stock.
That's what it's hydrocal's dental stone. It's the same stuff. I use a product called Perfect Cast.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Since we're out of our footprint questions.
So drink some water.
Yeah, he's like, oh, here comes the polygraph questions. I learned a little bit. My first real experience with polygraphs from somebody that did them was a gentleman by the name of David Bird, B-Y-R-D. And he was with Scotland Yard for 35 years. And he went to some academy in Canada that was a polygraphy academy. And it was not a light. They teach them, they teach interrogation, they teach interviewing, all the pre stuff. So when I first talked to him, it was very enlightening how he was saying that, when you first you do a pre-interview before you do a polygraph exam.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of people think you just walk in there and, okay, here you go. We're going to hook you up and ask you these questions. And
yeah, your polygraph's useless if you do that.
All right. You have to lead up. You have to stress the importance of the device to the person because that makes them more nervous a bit, I think.
Yeah, and you need to be able to control their nervousness. You need them, if you make them too at ease, you messed up. If you make them too nervous, you messed up. You kind of got to feel them out and figure out how to get them on that little tightrope.
And a lot of people ask and talk about, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Justin Smeha polygraph test.
No.
And Justin Smeha, are you familiar with Justin Smeha, first of all?
No.
Okay, Justin Smeha was the gentleman who claimed to have shot the Bigfoot and the baby Bigfoot on the ridge. Then he left. He came back. They took samples and went to the Ketchum study. He took it and went to Brian Sykes. Ketchum was angling to make it the centerpiece of their study, saying, he has all the same characteristics as all the other samples. And then Sykes' study came out and said, nope, it's bear. What you gave me was bear. And then he had blood tested by another lab on his boots, and that was bear.
Right.
But Smeha allegedly took a polygraph test provided by his friend and producer that long out of the Bigfoot world, Bro Sahebi. And they sent him down with a polygraph examiner who basically, their academy was polygraph in a box.
Yeah. I have so much to say about this already.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
All right. So there's only like 4 or 5 like truly accredited polygraph schools in the United States. It's very hard to do. You come out, you are basically, you have a mentor kind of relationship with somebody else. It was just a 3.5 month school. And most of these schools, even though they're accredited, they don't actually teach interviews and interrogations. That's upon your agency to have been doing that already prior to you going to this school. So you got a lot of polygraphers that are coming, even out of the accredited ones, who don't even know how to handle, okay, I got a failed polygraph in front of me. What do I do now? And luckily, I had been doing interviews and interrogations for years and years leading up to, it was my next step. I tried to do the voice stress thing, and that was a crock of crap. That's just BS. And then my next step was I was just trying to learn as much as I can. And so I went to polygraph school. But you have fly-by-night schools out there. And the easiest way to tell when you look up polygraph, like on the internet, if you're looking for a business and you want to hire someone, if it says lie detector anywhere on their website, they're full of crap and they've not been properly trained. It's just that simple. Because no self-respecting polygrapher will call it a lie detector, because a polygraph does not detect lies. It detects stress under certain situations. So if you have piss poor interview interrogation skills, and during that pre-interview that you're giving, if you haven't set this up properly, then even ask the right questions during the polygraph, which is extremely important. You have to have all of those skills combined to have it work out. You ask any polygrapher, they will not take a polygraph unless they get to choose who the polygrapher is, because we know that there are some crappy ones out there, and I've seen them. They're pay to play, man. If you go there, $200, what do you want them to say?
Yeah.
I honestly, I know that inside the interview room, giving a polygraph, I can make you fail or make you pass. I can just not ask the questions the right way,
depending on how it's
not
worded,
be professional. Yeah, I can help you get through it, but I can also make you fail too, just by even stressing the way I stress the question. Like I ask a control question. What's your name? Do you know who did this? Blah blah blah. And then I go, did you have anything to do with this? Like scare them. And then it'll make their heart jump, and then it'll show up as stress on that question.
Oh no, we got me.
They're even thinking about like some of the things now. They're thinking about taking away the actual voice of the polygrapher now and having it as a computerized voice. So a lot of my polygraphs that I mean, those last years, I made a very concerted effort to make sure that I was monotone and sounded exactly the same way every single test with every person. So if you played it, it sounded exactly the same. So it wouldn't look like I was giving anyone any preferential treatment, or I wasn't like using a certain tone to elicit a response. People are very sensitive. I mean, you can even have someone shut a door outside the office and it'll show up as a response on the polygraph. And if I wasn't paying attention and I didn't mark it, then it'll look like they had a response to a question. Now, you have to be very, very careful with it, and you have to have a very trustworthy polygrapher. We had to stop using certain polygraphers for pre-hiring because I was overwhelmed with that, and we like subcontracted out. And they literally, I found out they were doing exactly what you said, Steve. They were bringing people in, sitting them down, asking the questions, running the machine, sending them out. And I'd ask them, I was like, how'd your polygraph go? Yeah, it wasn't so bad. I went there. I was in and out in like 30 minutes. I'm like, the American Polygraph Association says you haven't done a complete polygraph unless you spent like 2 hours, because that means you had to cover the pre-interview, explaining the test, doing all that. And if you've done that properly, then you can't do even a pre-employment interview, under an hour and a half.
So the day we did the shoot, and let me set up this, is that, David and I were talking. David came in the night before, and him and I had a long conversation. And then that morning we were setting up. And one thing he was very assertive about was we had this huge room we were doing the polygraph in. And he said, this is great because I can control this area. The camera people, and there was only two, a sound guy and a cameraman. He goes, I can put them in the far corner of the room, keep them low. Well, hold on. Keep them low and silent. And if they want, because they had to film it, obviously. And they would film them from a distance. And it was a pretty big distance. It was like 35 feet in the room. So they just sat there and not said a peep.
Okay.
They just sat there, rolled the camera just for sound level and focus. And they didn't cut. They didn't have any direction. He just sat there and did the pre-talk. And I was actually watching via remote monitor in the next room. And he would sit there and break it down to them. He would have like a 45-minute spiel pre-hand. Then he would sit them down and test them. And the amazing thing is that every time he would come out, he would show me the computer screen with the computer analysis was. Of course, you know, he had the computer grading it, and he would also physically grade it himself.
That's a big deal too. Yeah.
Right. And then he would say, well, this person at least believes they've seen something. Everything seems very normal, blah, blah, blah. Then the third guy came in, and the third guy I had some questions about. And he gets in there, and he fails it. Right. And the funny thing was Moffat and Tico McCalla, which was the second gentleman. We had Mary Moffat, who was the first one, and she was a resident of Loch Ness and had seen something there. Tico McCalla, same thing. He had seen something there. Third guy was the boat captain who ran this little tour guide service that said he had seen it on several occasions because he's out on the water all the time. He failed miserably. And he showed me exactly where it was. I was like, oh, wow, that spiked pretty good. He goes, it's beyond a questionable range. This is definitely spikes. Yeah. So about 2.5 years later, there was a news article that broke in Scotland. Everybody was calling me up about it. Said there was this guy who said he has the most convincing picture of the Loch Ness Monster to date.
Yeah.
And I looked at the picture, and it was the guy who failed the polygraph test. And the picture he had was the hump that we put in the water for the demonstrations.
Oh, my gosh.
He was taking pictures of that, saved them, and then put them out as, right?
Oh, boy.
So next thing you know, I'm interviewed over, here in the U.S. That got transmitted into Scotland that completely blew him out of the water, and then he sold his business and disappeared.
That's amazing.
So to me, the strength of that polygraph that said, yeah, this guy is a liar.
Yeah.
It proved it correct years down the road.
Well, now I fully trust the polygraph. I really do. I gotta trust the polygrapher too. You know, like there's only I know two that would do mine if I got in trouble for anything, and the others they can pound sand. I'll refuse.
Well, the Nessie Tours guy was motivated too. Oh yeah, we see Nessie all the time. Come on out of my boat.
Oh yeah,
$150 a day. Come on.
That's a great tool,
because I remember that conversation because it was about the whole camera thing. Because Dave was like, "Well, they can't be in there," and then we need to, all right. Well, if they're going to be in here, they got to sit off in the corner. We're going to turn the lights low in there so they can't be seen. The person being polygraphed would not be facing necessarily the cameraman or that myself. They were kind of off, and they were off to the corner.
Yeah.
So he made it really sure where they were just totally obscure, and much to their credit, the cameraman and the sound guy, they just did perfectly. They sat there perfectly still. Nice. And it wasn't until they were done that they got up and did what they had to do and go back.
Steve, earlier I think Brian McMahon had asked a question. I had to look search through the chat and find out. I think this was it. He wanted to know if do you guys still investigate areas at Steve Kulls, or is this channel better for canvassing, etc.? Oh, I don't know. Steve's an active investigator, right. And I am too here in Kentucky, but he's in New York.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
hands on.
I don't know
what on the ground
necessarily canvassing, but what that particularly means. But yes, I am an active investigator, and when stuff comes up, it comes out in the channel a lot of times. Some of our members area has some of the witness interviews because I don't like putting my witnesses out in public view. And if they want to come on and do a public live podcast like Will Boving did, that's fine. Or, eventually, Pat might come out. But a lot of the stuff, I had an interview I did about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago, of a family who had a sighting and a small child had seen it and everything like that. I'm not going to put that family at risk and put them out there.
Right.
And such. You can go to my members area. My members area can watch it and stuff. And I don't like necessarily putting things behind a paywall, but they are helping support the research. So
for Brian, we do a show 2 or 3 times a week, and it's not about we only do a show if we find evidence. No, we what's going on in the Bigfoot world? Let's talk about this, or
let's learn about this. Or
yeah,
we did a whole series on relic hominins and our evolutionary path at one point in time. Sometimes we have a great guest on like David.
Yeah.
And or like we, a couple of years ago, we had Jeff Meldrum on. Every once in a while, we'll have, some things we want. You got to pay attention to this guy because we don't.
Well, Steve, I have a question for you.
Certainly.
With your background in interviews and interrogations, when you're talking to your witnesses, do you have a set protocol you use, or do you just kind of wing it, or have you found like there's a certain way that you should be approaching these witnesses? Because my approach is going to be entirely different. I come, people probably aren't going to like me if I interview them, right?
So,
unless I treat them like a true victim,
right. Well, that's the way it's kind of like I look at it as, a victim, but the way I've kind of turned it is, yes, you do. Every time you have a big witness, you do kind of got to wing it because you're not in that clinical setting that we have if we apprehend somebody, arrest somebody, or bring somebody in for questioning.
Because I've always wondered what it would be like to have somebody in a room. Like I got a Bigfoot witness, I'm gonna bring them in a sterile environment, a room that's not their home, not their property.
Oh no!
And let's have a conversation about what you saw.
My whole idea is this. Is that I want my Bigfoot witness to feel as comfortable as possible. Because I also have a certification from the behavior panel too, because I'm a body language interpreter too. So what I do is I want them as comfortable as possible. And by that time, I've already gotten a written account. I've gotten a verbal account over the phone. And I'm basing some of my questions upon that when I get to it. Okay. But usually I'll sit with them and start asking them questions. Normal, I'm getting baseline levels of how they respond to questions. Neurolinguistics, I'm thinking body language. And then I will start questioning on them. And what I do is I kind of bop them to different points of the timeline.
Yeah.
And let me go back to this. Mm-hmm. So, and then what I try to do also is build a timeline of the events. Even a roadside crossing, where were you coming from?
Oh, you have to have the timeline.
Yeah, where were you going to?
Super important.
And a lot of people don't do that. They just said, well, so what happened? And, they'll tell them and they saw a Bigfoot. Okay, thank you. No, where were you coming from? Well, I was coming from here in Vermont, and I was driving my home in Ticonderoga, and it was about this time we saw this. We turned around, we went back, it was gone. And I try to get any secondary witnesses I can out of them as well.
Right.
The body language read is huge, but usually I will also, as I'm getting towards the midline of it, I'll make a comment like, now I do this, and sometimes I'll make it even on my phone conversation. I'm doing this out of my own time, my own money. We don't get paid for what we do. Mm-hmm. So if this is not something that is real, or this is something fabricated, I hit them right between the eyes. I go back to the read method. Then just let me know now. That way I'm not wasting my time, your time, and my money.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And a lot of times, not a lot of times, but there would be times when I'd people say, well, maybe you shouldn't come out here tonight. They won't admit it, but
then you're just like, well, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not going to hold it against you. Thank you.
Right. I've actually cracked somebody on an email.
Oh, wow.
That had said, can you tell me about your experience? And they start writing, and I just turned around. I said, all right, this isn't real, is it? ? And the person right back, no, it's not. I was just trying to create some excitement. All right.
I helped somebody get they supposedly found a handprint and cast it. And I told the person who sent it to me, I said, why don't you do me a favor? Call the caster, tell him I found enough dermal ridges in there to actually make an identification. Tell them that one of the best things that we could do is get some elimination prints tell him I need him to ink his handprints and anyone else who was there that day. And the best thing that we could do is at least say, I know for a fact this guy did not hoax it, because I was able to have this verified by a certified latent fingerprint examiner that these do not come from him. And he changed his mind.
Oh, man.
Yep.
I bluffed. There wasn't enough. There were dermal ridges on it, but there wasn't enough, but he didn't know that.
He probably didn't want anybody to have his fingerprints. That's what it was, Dave.
Nah. No, he actually changed his tune. The person that I was dealing with actually emailed me the guy's response. He went from, I found this on a BFR expedition. Nothing against them, just saying that's where it was. And he went from, well, I didn't actually think it was at the time. I was just thinking there was a possibility that this could be a Bigfoot. And I was like, dude, you had it all over your social media, right? It literally was everywhere saying, look, I got a Bigfoot handprint.
Right.
What it was two hands on top of each other, making a very large one.
Right.
And I was able to show it. And there were some telltale signs. If I really tried and I was going to go to court on it, there was a possibility I could have put the work in and made an identification, but it was enough to bluff them. So yeah,
Sure.
Unfortunately, those are out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's always about listening to what they're saying a lot of times. That's why I let them talk.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I remember one of the, another email exchange I had from a guy explaining to what was going on was the Katoomba Yowie video back in 2005, I want to say 2006. And this video was of a very Chewbacca-looking item, and he goes on to introduce himself when we're talking. You know, I had one of my contacts contact him, and we ended up going through this email exchange. And I said, you know, at the very onset, I would like to speak to some of the other witnesses or hear from the other witnesses that were with you. You know, was that your wife? I heard him back. No, that was my friend's girlfriend, yada, yada, yada. My wife and her friend were, other friend were at the house ordering dinner from this Indian restaurant. And he goes on and he talks and he's talking. And then he made another comment about, well, my wife and my wife and her friend were back at the house preparing dinner. Well, that's not what you said. There's a big difference between ordering takeaway, as they say in Australia, and preparing dinner.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave.
So that was crack number one. And the minute I questioned him about that, I said, well, can you get me the emails of the other people that were involved? And then, you know, he went from saying, I'll do whatever it takes to help do this to, well, what do you want to hear from them for? And blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So what do you think? You know, here it is, you know, he's not giving me access to the other witnesses. So, you know, what do you have? You have that big discrepancy in the food. And then when I first started talking to him, one of the things that I always keep mind of is listening for the objections before they happen.
Yeah.
And one of the things he says, well, I just want to start off by saying, I did work for the art department for, you know, a Fox Studio affiliate that helped with, you know, the Kashyyyk battle scene on Revenge of the Sith.
What was it? Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
The Star Wars one.
Mm-hmm.
And is it a coincidence that you have all these Wokies on set here, and the one that he filmed with this thing looks like a Wookiee?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he's already setting that objection up.
Yeah.
And to preempt that, I thought was pretty smart and very manipulative. But I always find that if you just get them to repeat some of the aspects of their story, that it will break down with some inconsistency.
Oh, yeah.
And then I also use some psychology when I look at criminal psychology, when I look at people who submit reports. And the one big glaring one I always use is the Bigfoot Peeper case. I don't know if you remember that one. That's the guy that said he saw it through the window and he took all these pictures of it. And as it turned out, let me put his background investigation aside, but as the story came out, he says he's sitting there, with the window open watching TV when he smells something horrible. And all of a sudden, looking through the window, here is this Bigfoot, and he just happens to so have a video camera nearby.
Yeah.
So he pulls that out, starts videoing that for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then his wife walks in and screams. He then goes to his closet and grabs his whatever caliber he said, grabbed my .45, but I came back and it was gone.
Yeah.
Now, I sat there, I go, let's break this down. Number one, his wife is there.
Yeah.
You have something walking out in your window, honey, look at this. That would be the first thing anybody goes. You want somebody to see what you're seeing. Not to mention, if the wife happens to walk out on the front porch, she may get clobbered by this thing. That's
right.
Number two. His wife comes in and screams. Then he decides to go into defense mode when that normally is your first thing. If you see that in your window, if you're gonna go for a weapon, you're gonna go for it right then and there. You're not gonna go for your camera.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And there were some other little minutia things. Oh, the wife called the sheriff's department. Never said which sheriff's department. And then the final cap was, well, all I have left are these stills of the video. The video actually got destroyed in a fire at my mom's house.
Yeah, the fire thing.
Yeah. So, as it turned out, when I did the research, and this guy was putting his name out as such and such, turns out that the first name he was using was actually his middle name, and that he was a convicted predator. And had done a couple of years for that, moved from Indiana to Colorado, and then about a year and a half after he was in Colorado, he got outed for working at as a Santa's helper at a mall Santa site.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about his character?
After doing time for crimes against children.
Maybe he did have that video camera out.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to think about that. But psychologically, people are like, well, why did he do it? Do you think he was trying to lure? No, I don't think he was trying to lure. It's if you think about the guy's psychology, he's been ostracized by everybody.
He needs attention.
He needs to belong to a group, but not just belong to a group, but be looked upon as somebody, worthy of that group.
Yeah.
He wants to be looked up to, and he wants to belong. So that's the reason why he did what he did. And I didn't see any nefarious thing there. Nobody ever said that he wrote anything nefarious to them. Right. And away he went in the night. And then eventually it got outed that somebody had actually found the film. And it was a 8-second or 10-second film that somebody was using a phone app to test. Yeah. And what he did was took a few screenshots of that phone app and then made this wild story up and put it out there. Yeah.
Oh boy.
So,
yeah.
All right, Chris.
Already. Wow,
yeah,
this has been
10:54.
This has been a fast show. David, we want to thank you again for coming on. This has been great discussion.
Hey, you guys, I really enjoyed it. You guys were fun talking to.
All it's pleasure on this end. We really appreciate it. All you guys over in chat, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. If you're new and you hadn't subscribed yet, consider subscribing to the channel. Smash that thumbs up on the way out if you hadn't already. And for you guys listening over on the podcast, make sure you get over to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@SquatchDTV and check out the video. Sometimes there's some pretty cool stuff. Plus, I like the Sasquatch vlogs. You guys can check that out. But thanks again. This is only possible because we know we got the greatest audience. We know this is only possible because you guys. Thank you so much. We are humbled and honored by your presence every time. Thank you. Thank you. And I mean it from my heart. Thank you.
And like I said, I know Grant is asking about the Whitehall information. If you were probably not here at the beginning of the show when I said that information will be out tomorrow evening to those who are going. For those who've been here there before, you guys already know people like Sasquatch Wizard, Adirondacks, you know where we are. Finding the Trackway, they know where we are. Jen, you know where we are. But if you need any help, just holler at me. We will get you specific directions. In fact, I may send it out to you guys anyway. But I want to thank David for coming on. David, you and I are going to have a lot more conversations in the coming months. You were a resource, and I hope I can be a resource to you.
Oh, you are. Thank you.
And I think we will move forward and have some great times and look at some of these things with a whole new eye, which we got a big gap to fill now that we've lost Dr. Meldrum. So we got to do better. We got to do more, and we got to, keep our fight straight. But folks, we love our audience. I've always said this. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you haven't, well, you're missing out. And if you want to support good research, check out the membership area. We do some special things here and there. We love you guys. You are the best audience out there. You ask some great educated questions. We love that. And we're growing every day. And if you're on the audio platforms, check us out over here on the channel at youtube.com/@SquatchDTV. Hey, check out David's channel. I'll be putting a link up to his YouTube channel at some point tomorrow. And we'll take care of that. And check David out also at BigfootForensics.com. And David, again, thank you, my brother.
Thank
Chris,
you.
thank you as always. And we'll see everybody next time, which will be Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
We thank you for being here with us on Squatch-D TV. If you haven't taken the time yet, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And oh yes, hit that notification bell too. We don't want you to miss anything. If you really like our content, you should consider becoming a member, and it's really inexpensive and a great way to support not only the show, but honest Bigfoot research. Everyone have a great week. Be safe and God bless. We will see you all here next time on Squatch-D TV. Keep on squatching.